Right. Welcome back again. This is lecture number 10, chapter 12, thermodynamic property relations. Now, in previous class, we discussed how to evaluate, we derived different relationship for change in enthalpy, change in entropy, change in internal energy. And those were the general relationship that were equally applicable for the ideal gas as well as for the real gases. Now, in this class, let's continue. So first of all, we'll discuss Joule-Thomson coefficient. Now, what's the, I mean, why we need to study Joule-Thomson coefficient? Basically, it represents the temperature behavior of a fluid during a throttling process. So you know that throttling process is basically a constant enthalpic process. The flow through a valve, flow through a capillary tube. So flow through any restriction, it can be a porous plug. We call that a throttling process. So how the temperature behavior of a fluid during the throttling process, that's explained by the Joule-Thomson coefficient, right? For example, this is one of the throttling device. A valve is one of the throttling device. If we close or open the valve, we can control the throttling process. So let's say this is a state 1 and this is a state 2. So state 1 means that's the inlet state of the valve and the outlet state of the valve. We know that, let's say at state 1 we have temperature 20 degrees C of a certain fluid and pressure is 800 kilopascal. So we know that when the flow will move through the restriction or the throttling device, then because of the restriction, pressure is definitely, it will drop because of the restriction. So the pressure will drop from 800 to, let's say, 200 kilopascal. But what about the temperature? So that's the Joule-Thomson coefficient, right? So Joule-Thomson coefficient will explain whether because of that throttling process temperature will increase, decrease, or remain constant. So there are three possibilities that as a result of the throttling process the temperature may increase, it may remain constant, or it may decrease. So increase of temperature mean heating process. After the throttling device, it is possible that the heating process take place. Similarly, it is possible the cooling process can take place, or there is no change of the temperature. So both three possibilities are there. We are studying this Joule-Thomson coefficient from the perspective of the refrigeration or from the perspective of the steam process, because many valves are installed there. Especially in refrigeration process, we have a capillary tube, let's say a throttling device. So that means, if you recall that in throttling device we may obtain a cooling process after the throttling process. So that means there is also possibility that instead of cooling process there might be heating process, which is not desirable in the refrigeration process. So how to evaluate that? That's basically given by the Joule-Thomson coefficient. So it is represented with mu Jt. Jt means Joule-Thomson coefficient. So if the value of the Joule-Thomson coefficient is less than 0, that means negative value, then heating process will take place after the throttling process. The temperature will increase. If the value of the Joule-Thomson coefficient is 0, then that process is isothermal. So there will be no change of the temperature, right, before and after the throttling process. So if the value of the Joule-Thomson coefficient is positive, that means greater than 0, then temperature will decrease. That means cooling will produce after the throttling process. Now, right, so basically what is Joule-Thomson coefficient? This is basically represent the slope of constant enthalpy line on TP diagram. To understand this, let's say we have this TP diagram. You can see that we can draw this diagram with the help of an experiment. Let's say we have an inlet state, and inlet state is, let's say, fixed. We have a fixed pressure P1 and T1, but we are varying the outlet condition. How can we vary the outlet condition? We can vary by controlling that restriction. That restriction can be a valve. First let's say initially we open a valve slightly, then we further open the valve, then we open more, or if we are using some let's say porous plug, then we can control the diameter of the porous plug. Initially, let's say the diameter is small and then slightly larger and then more larger. So as a result, the outlet condition will change. However, the inlet condition remains same. So let's say this is our inlet condition, right? Let's say P1 and T1. So that's our inlet condition, and 2 is our outlet condition. So let's say at outlet we got this state 2, and then we slightly open the valve, and then we got a new state, and then we further open the valve, we got new state, and further open the valve, we got new state. So that means we are changing the outlet state, so we are getting this curve. So this is basically constant enthalpy curve. Constant enthalpy curve mean that's for the isenthalpic process. I mean, this is a throttling process, whether valve is slightly open or fully open, however the process is a throttling process. So this is a constant enthalpy curve we obtain for different outlet condition. So if you carefully see that basically if we take the derivative of this, I mean slope of this, slope means derivative of this TP curve at constant enthalpy, that will give you the value of the Joule-Thomson coefficient. So that means we can define mathematically Joule-Thomson coefficient as mu is equal to the derivative of temperature with respect to pressure at constant enthalpy. So that's basically the definition of the Joule-Thomson coefficient. Now we can, I mean, in previous slide, the diagram that you saw that was for one set of, I mean, we take one inlet condition and then we change the outlet condition, we got one curve. Similarly, we can change, let's say, a new inlet condition, and then we repeat the experiment, then we'll got a new curve. Similarly, let's say we change another inlet condition, we will get a new curve. Similarly, another inlet condition, we'll get another constant enthalpy curve. So let's say if you join the peak of all the curve, then you will get a curve. This curve is called maximum temperature inversion. That means basically the throttling process take place from right to left, because at inlet state of the valve, let's say at inlet state of the valve here, let's say inlet, the pressure is high, whereas after throttling the pressure is decreased as a result of the throttling process. So basically this process takes place from high pressure to low pressure, in other words from right to left. So you can see that, I mean, here the slope, I mean, this is the, if we join the peak of all the curve, that's called the maximum temperature inversion line. So basically that curve, maximum inversion temperature line, decide whether the process will take place in a cooling region or for a heating region, or it remains constant, because at peak the slope of the TP curve is a 0 at peak. So that means if any process take place in that region, that will be an isothermal process. I mean, the value of the mu Jt at this point is 0, whereas here you can see this is basically the I mean, the temperature is increasing. If the process take place in that region, then heating will take place, so temperature will increase, so it will become I mean 0, I mean change in temperature will be 0, isothermal process, and then it will start cooling because temperature is decreasing now, right? So that means at the right of the inversion line, the value of the mu Jt is a negative. That means heating will take place, whereas on the left side of the inversion line, the value of the Joule-Thomson coefficient is positive. So that means cooling will take place. So that means I mean, that's the cooling region, that's the heating region, right? Whereas here the slope is 0, so the value of the Joule-Thomson coefficient is 0, so that means the isothermal process, right? So this is how the Joule-Thomson coefficient give you an indication for the throttling process, whether during the throttling process whether the temperature will increase, decrease, or remain constant. So in short, basically you need to figure out the value of the Joule-Thomson coefficient. If the value of the Joule-Thomson coefficient is 0, then there will be no change in temperature during the throttling process. If the value of the Joule-Thomson coefficient is negative, then heating will take place during the throttling process. If the value of the Joule-Thomson coefficient is positive, that cooling will take place. Basically, in refrigeration system, when we use a throttling device, we need the value of the Joule-Thomson coefficient to be positive, because if the value is positive, then the cooling will take place during the throttling process, right? Okay. Now, so how to calculate the value of the Joule-Thomson coefficient? We must have certain relationship. Although the definition of the Joule-Thomson coefficient is, this is the slope of the TP curve along the constant enthalpy. In other words, partial T by partial P at constant enthalpy is the definition of the Joule-Thomson coefficient. But how to measure for different fluids? I mean, how to calculate that? We can derive a relation in terms of, I mean, the specific heat, pressure, specific volume, and temperature, because these are the measurable parameter. I mean, we can measure for any process, let's say at inlet state or outlet state of the valve, we can measure pressure, we can measure temperature, we can measure flow rate or the specific volume. So these are the directly measurable parameters. So we must have a relationship for the Joule-Thomson coefficient in terms of these parameters, which are directly measurable. So we can drive that relationship for Joule-Thomson coefficient. This is the general relationship that we derived in previous lecture. For the change in enthalpy, general relationship for change in enthalpy was equal to Cp dt plus V minus T times partial V by partial T at constant pressure into dP. Now, during the throttling process, what is the value of the delta H? That's a constant enthalpy process. So that means delta H is equal to 0. So that means we can take delta H to be 0 because that's a constant enthalpy process. So if we put value of the 0 here, and then if we rearrange, I mean, we need deep T, this is 0. So this will come on one side, whereas we have combined dt and dP. So partial T by partial P, so we have since put 0, so that means constant enthalpy process. So that will be minus 1 by Cp into V minus T times partial V by partial T at constant pressure. So this is basically the relationship. This is the value of the Joule-Thomson coefficient for all the processes. So if we can calculate this parameter, if this parameter is positive, then cooling will take place. If this parameter is negative, then heating will take place. If this parameter come out to be 0, then that process will be isothermal process, right? To understand this, let's try to apply that. Let's try to validate that. For example, show that Joule-Thomson coefficient of an ideal gas is 0. Right, so that means if we are using in a valve, let's say in a valve, if the ideal gas flows at state in inlet state, and then after throttling process, its temperature remains constant for the ideal gas. So let's try to prove that for this one, the Joule-Thomson coefficient should come out to be 0. Now we know that the definition from the previous slide, definition of the Joule-Thomson coefficient is equal to minus 1 by Cp V minus T partial V by partial T at constant pressure. So that means for ideal gas, we need this value, we need specific value from the equation of the ideal gas. We know that PV is equal to RT or V is equal to RT by P. So we can put the value of V here. And similarly, we take the derivative of V with respect to temperature, keeping the pressure constant, then will come, for example, this value will come out to be R by P. Now, if we put all the value in the above equation, for example, 1 by minus Cp into V minus T, so value of V is, if we put that, and this one, and if we rearrange that, then the value will come out to be 0. So the value of Joule-Thomson coefficient is equal to 0. So that indicates that this is a isothermal process. There is no change of temperature during the throttling process. So we can also represent that this is a constant enthalpy line. This is a throttling process. So the temperature also remains constant. This is state 1, P1, this is P2. Pressure is changing. However, temperature remains constant for an ideal gas. Similarly, we can also calculate for different fluid for different refrigerant. So that will decide that during the throttling process whether the heating take place or the cooling take place, right? Now the next topic is how to calculate the value of the delta H, delta U and delta S for the real gases. I mean, in previous lecture we derived the general relation for delta H, delta U and delta H. Now by using those general relations we can calculate the change in enthalpy, change in internal energy, change in entropy of real gases. So let's see how we can do that. I mean, we know that at a low pressure the gases behaves in an ideal gases, that means PV is equal to RT, and the properties like internal energy, enthalpy, CV, CP, they are a function of temperature only. I mean, they vary with the temperature only. However, at high pressure, I mean, gases, they deviate from the ideal behavior. They considerably deviate from the ideal behavior. So that means the property that actually for the real gases, they should be much different than the real gases. So the values are much different. But how to calculate that? For example, in chapter 3, we calculate the properties. I mean, properties of real gases from the ideal gases by using a compressibility factor. So these were the pressure, volume and temperature of real gases by using compressibility factor. But how to calculate the properties like U, H, right, and S mean entropy, right? Although we know we can measure pressure, volume and temperature using the compressibility factor as you learned in chapter 3, but how to calculate the indirectly measurable property like internal energy, enthalpy. So we'll try to understand this in this section, right? So let's start with the enthalpy changes of the real gases. Now to understand the enthalpy changes of the real gases, we will use the general relation that we derived in the previous lecture. That generally the change in enthalpy of any gas, whether a real gas, generally that vary with the temperature as well as with the pressure. So that means enthalpy is a function of temperature as well as for the pressure. However, if we assume that the gas is an ideal gas, then it will depend on the temperature only. So that means the second term will ignore that. This term will be equal to 0 in case of ideal gas only. But if we consider real gas, then it depends on both temperature as well as pressure. Now, to understand this, let's try to see this diagram. Let's say this is a TS diagram, and let's say the process take place from state 1 to state 2. Right, so this is a process. So our objective is to calculate the change in enthalpy from state 1 to state 2. Now this is a low pressure state. Let's say this is a reference state, low pressure state. P0 is equal to 0, very low pressure, whereas the process 1 to 2 take place at high pressure. Right, this is a high pressure, similarly this is a high pressure, whereas this one is a low pressure. Low pressure mean we can assume this state to be ideal state. This star represented the low pressure or an ideal state, whereas these two states represent high pressure state. Now since this is a property, enthalpy is a property, so it depends on the end states only. This is a that depends on the state 1 and state 2. That does not depend on the path. So that means if a process changes from state 1 to state 2, it does not depend on the path. The path can be, let's say, 1 to 1 star, and then 1 star to 2 star, and then 2 star to 2, because it does not depend on the path. We can follow the direct path as well as we can follow this path. Why we are following this longest path? Because let's say this is a combination of the general processes. Let's say, because we from this formula we know that enthalpy is a function of temperature and pressure. So basically 1 to 1 star is an isothermal process. You can see that this is an isothermal process. Similarly 1 star to 2 star is a constant pressure process. Similarly 2 star to 2 is again a constant temperature process. So basically we can convert the process 1 to 2 as a combination of isothermal process, isobaric process, and again isothermal process, right? So let's try to convert that process. So when we'll consider the isothermal process, for example this one isothermal process, then the second term will be equal to 0. When we'll consider constant pressure process, then then the second term will be equal to 0. When we'll consider the constant temperature process, then the first term will be equal to 0. I mean delta T will be equal to 0 for constant temperature. Similarly for constant pressure, delta P will be equal to 0, right? Okay, so that process 1 star and 2 star, they are at low pressure, so they represented the ideal state. And now we can convert this change from 1 to 2, I mean change in enthalpy from, I mean H2 minus H1 is equal to the combination of, we can convert that the combination of 1 to 2 is basically the sum of this one, and this one. I mean H2 minus H1 is equal to H2 minus H2 star plus H2 star minus H1 star plus H1 star minus H1, right? So we can convert that change H2 minus H1, I mean this H2 minus H1 is equal to, I mean this one, by summing up three process H2 minus H2 star and then plus H2 star minus H1 star and then plus H1 star minus H1. So we can write that change of enthalpy of the real gas as a combination of the three terms, right? So let's try to see each term separately. For example, the first term, let's say this is the first term, let's say H2 minus H2 star. So this take place at constant temperature. So this take place at constant temperature. So that means the first term will be equal to 0. So the first term will be equal to 0. Then the second term will remains, which is the delta P. So that means this process take place from the P0 to P2. So P0 to P2, right? So star means that's star, P2 star. So that's basically the ideal state, right? And we can write down as it is, right? And then the next process is from 2 star to 1 star. So this is an ideal state. So this is a constant pressure state. This is a constant pressure. So that means the second term will be now equal to 0. So the first term remained there and the second is equal to 0. So this is basically an ideal state. So this represented the change of enthalpy during the ideal state. So this is the ideal state. Now the third term is H1 star minus H1. So H1 star minus H1. So this is H1 star minus H1. So this is again a constant temperature process. So constant temperature means first term is equal to 0. So in that case, first term is equal to 0. So this process take place from P1 to P1 star. So P1 to P1 star, and that negative sign is because we have reverse the integration from P1 star to P1, or in other word P0 is the reference temperature. So that's equal to dP. Now we have represented all the three combinations. Now if you carefully observe that all the enthalpy, whether H2 star minus H1 or H2 minus H2 star, they depends on pressure, temperature, volume. Again, pressure, temperature, volume. So that means in order to calculate the properties of enthalpy for real gases, we should have the data for pressure, volume and temperature of the real gases. And how we get the value of the pressure, volume, temperature for the real gases? We use the compressibility factor. I mean, to get the pressure, volume, temperature of the real gases, we use the compressibility factor. And we also have, this represent the difference represent, for example, this the first difference, this is the enthalpy at ideal state, whereas this is the enthalpy at real state. For the gases of real state, this is the ideal gases. So the difference between these two, that represent the enthalpy departure. How the enthalpy is changing, how the enthalpy is deviating from the ideal behavior. Similarly, this represented the the enthalpy departure from the ideal behavior, whereas this one is the enthalpy change during the ideal process, because both are star. So star means that's ideal state, change of enthalpy for the ideal state, and this one we can easily obtain from the tables, and we also can put the direct formula, I mean Cp delta T. But for the real gas, that's the enthalpy departure. I mean departure means deviation from the ideal behavior. So to calculate these two terms, we should have the data for volume, temperature and pressure, and that data for the real gases we can obtain from the PV is equal to ZRT. So this equation, so that means in this equation, if we rearrange that, I mean in previous equation if you looked at, that means basically we need this term, V minus T partial V by partial T. So if we know this term, we can put this value and we can get this term. So basically we need volume and then the derivative of volume with respect to temperature at constant pressure. So we can use this equation for the real gases. So that is PV is equal to ZRT, and then if we rearrange, V will be equal to ZRT by P. And now we have two variable. R is a constant, pressure will be also constant, so we'll have Z and T. So if we take the partial derivative of V with respect to temperature at constant pressure, then we'll have the two terms. And then if we put V minus T partial V by partial T, and if we simplify this, and then we'll get this value. So now this value can be, we can put in the within the integration, and first we can convert this in terms of reduced properties. We know that we can convert any temperature in terms of reduced temperature by multiplying with the critical temperature. Similarly, pressure we can convert in terms of reduced pressure by multiplying with the critical pressure. So instead of using the temperature and pressure, we can put this value, right? If we put here T, that will be T critical square T R square. Similarly, if we put P here, that will be P critical times PR. Similarly, here we'll have T critical TR. T critical is constant, so it will be out. So we can simplify that, right? So if we put that value, in that equation, value of the T, this value, similarly the value of the P, and if we simplify, we'll get this equation. Now this value we can put in that case. This is basically the enthalpy departure, deviation from the ideal behavior. That's called the enthalpy departure. In the previous slide, if you recall that, in the previous slide, this value was equal to this one. So we have derived this value, the inside one, and that's equal to this value, right? This value. So if we put that value then and simplify, all the constant they will be out, only variable will be inside the integration sign. And if we further simplify, let's say these two terms R and T critical, they come under this one, and the remaining remains on this side. Now this is a factor, this one is a factor, and we call the enthalpy departure factor. Let's say that's ZH, right? This factor is equal to, let's say, ZH, and ZH is equal to H star minus H divided by RU T critical, right? So that's basically equal to this whole terms. So instead we calculate this whole term, we integrate and then we multiply, so we can have a chart for this one. We call the enthalpy departure chart. So now you can see from here, enthalpy departure will be equal to if this one goes to another side, so that will be ZH times RUTC. So this is basically represent the enthalpy departure. So that means the departure means the deviation from the real gas of an ideal gas. So that means we need three parameters. First of all, we need ZH, RU and TC. So TC is a constant, RU is a constant, so we need to figure out this value ZH. That's called the enthalpy departure factor. We can know this value of enthalpy departure factor from a chart, right? That chart is basically available at the end of the property table. That's A29. That's available. If you see that, you can calculate the value of the ZH, which is called enthalpy departure factor. Now this was our first equation. We consider the process 1 to 2, and the change of enthalpy was a combination of the three terms, H2 minus H2 star plus H2 star minus H1 star plus H1 star minus H1. So three terms. Now if we put the value of these three terms, I mean the first value, I mean if you see the from the previous slide, the value of the enthalpy departure, I mean as a journal enthalpy departure value was H star minus H, that was equal to ZH RUTC. So that was the value of RUTC. So that was the value of the enthalpy departure. So this is journal, we define generally. So if we put 1 here, let's say H1 and then ZH1, right? Similarly, let's say the H2, so we can put H2 ZH2. So let's say this is the first value, H2 minus H2 star. So this is basically H star minus H. This is H star minus H, but now this is H2 minus H star. So that means we should have a negative value here. So minus RUT critical. Now we have ZH2 because this value of the enthalpy departure factor is for H2, plus this is an ideal gas because both are star. H2 star, H1 star. So we can, that's the change of enthalpy for an ideal gas. So we'll put H2 minus H1 for the ideal one, plus what is the value of this one, H1 star minus H1, again RUT critical ZH1. So if we rearrange, like if we take common this one and we simplify that, and then we'll get this is the first term, and then we join these two terms, this term and this term, and then we'll take common and we'll have ZH2 minus ZH1. So if you see carefully, this is the change of enthalpy of a real gas that is equal to the change in enthalpy of the ideal gas minus this term. So this term basically represents the deviation from the ideal behavior. So this is the ideal change in enthalpy of the ideal gas minus this factor. So this factor basically represents the deviation. So change in enthalpy of a real gas is equal to change in enthalpy of the ideal gas minus this factor. And lastly, how to calculate? This one we already know that we can get this value, change in enthalpy for the ideal gases from the gas table, because in the table the value of the ideal gases, enthalpy, internal energy, entropy is given in the table, but we need to calculate this value. This is a constant, T critical is a constant. How to get this one? For state 2 and for state 1, how to get this value? We can get this value from this chart A29, right? That chart is given in the properties. Now you can see that if we know the reduced pressure, for example, let's say the given if we divide the given temperature with the critical temperature, let's say, then you will get reduced temperature. Similarly, if we divide given pressure with the critical pressure, then you will get reduced pressure. So if you have reduced pressure and reduced temperature, then where it cuts, let's say at this point, then you can read the value of this one, ZH, from the table. So now you can put that value, let's say this is for state 1, then similarly let's say you can have another value of PR, another value of the TR. So let's say it cuts here, then you will get the value of the ZH for state 2. So if you have ZH1, ZH2, then you can put the value in here, ZH1 and ZH2, and then you can calculate the value of the change in enthalpy of the real gases. So this was for the change in enthalpy. Similarly, if we know the value of the enthalpy, then from change in enthalpy of the real gases, we can calculate the internal energy changes of the real gases. We know that the relationship between the enthalpy and internal energy, H is equal to U plus PV, and if we put for the PV in terms of the real gases, so that will be Z. This is a compressibility factor, Z, RUT, right? And let's say for state 1, the value of the U will be equal to H, this term will go on the other side, so it will be H1 minus Z1 RUT. So this is the compressibility factor at state 1. Similarly, for U2, we'll have H2 minus ZH2 RUT. This is for the compressibility factor for state 2. And then the change in internal energy will be the difference of these two. So this is basically the enthalpy, and we can calculate this enthalpy from the previous slide. I mean, the change in enthalpy of the real gases minus universal gas constant, compressibility factor at state 2, temperature of the state 2 minus compressibility factor at state 1 and temperature at state 1. So this is how we can calculate the change in internal energy from the change in enthalpy. Similarly, we can get the entropy changes of the real gases. So again, this is like the change in entropy of the real gases is equal to change in entropy of the ideal gases minus R times ZS2 minus ZS1. I'm not going into derivation of this. You can apply, I mean, the same concept is applied as we derived for the enthalpy. So basically you should know how to apply this for calculating the change in entropy of the real gases. Now you can see the only difference will be here for the enthalpy you will have ZH2. Similarly here you will have ZH1. So this is basically the enthalpy departure coefficient. This is the enthalpy departure coefficient, but here this is entropy departure coefficient. So this is S represent the entropy departure coefficient, H represent the enthalpy departure coefficient. Again we have, I mean, the first term, this is ideal. You know that we can calculate this from the ideal gas equation or from the ideal gas property table, but this one we have to calculate it from the chart we call the entropy departure chart, and those charts are available in the property table. For example, this is one of the A30. So again, if you have reduced pressure and reduced temperature, let's say that reduced temperature, so you can read the value of the ZS, right, for any state. Let's say state 1, state 2, and then you can put those value of the ZS here, right, for state 2 and for state 1. This is a constant, and this one we will get from the property table of the ideal gas. So then you can calculate the change in entropy of the real gases. So that's the end of this lecture. I hope you understand. If you have any question, you can ask me on MS Team. You can email me. So see you in the next class.